Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. My wife Ann and I had just had our second child in early 2023 and moved into a duplex in an amazing neighborhood, had its own playground even. We moved in and greeted the neighbors, bunch of younger people, but they seemed okay. The first day after moving in, we find that they're gone, and they've left their 7-year-old, on a school day, outside our door with a bag of goldfish and a note asking us to watch him while they went out. Did they seriously just leave their kid with complete strangers? Anne asked, shocked. Looks like it, I replied, looking at the confused little boy standing on our porch. Hey buddy, where did your mom and dad go? They said they'd be back later, he mumbled, clutching his snack. Cue CPS call #1. The neighbors and I got along really well. Old guy next door, Mr. Wilson, repaired bikes for a hobby, and the neighbor on the other side, Tom, did woodworking and would always come over to see the kids and sent his grandkids over to play too. They warned us that our upstairs neighbors were trouble. Those folks up there are nothing but problems, Mr. Wilson told me one afternoon while working on a bike chain. Constant traffic going in and out and parties every single night. This was 110% the truth. It got to the point we couldn't sleep at night and we had multiple altercations to the point it was full-blown yelling matches. Can you please keep it down? We have infants trying to sleep, I shouted up the stairs one night around 2 a.m. Mind your own business, the guy Jason shouted back. It's a Friday night, loosen up. The landlord was useless and would do nothing to get rid of them. Sorry, but as long as they pay rent on time, there's not much I can do about noise complaints, he told me over the phone, sounding completely indifferent, so I bided my time. Eventually, one night in the summer of 2023, they came home in their red Mazda 3 and it was destroyed. They must have hit someone and ran, so I called the RCMP to let them know. At the very least, I figured they'd get in deep trouble, but oh man, I had no idea what I had just unleashed. Hello, police! I'd like to report a hit and run. My upstairs neighbors just pulled up in their car and the front end is completely smashed in. Turns out Jason had a warrant out for his arrest for drug trafficking. He got hauled away in cuffs that night, screaming, "This is your fault. I know it was you who called." Meanwhile, his girlfriend Amanda got a visit from CPS again as they left their son home alone again. This wasn't once or twice, it was every single day. So Anne went digging for names and found the child's mother, Tiffany, on Facebook. Using public record searches, we found out that they owed Easy Home nearly $52K in assets, as they had taken off from the original address with all of their furniture including TVs and a huge sound system. Look at this, Anne said, pointing to her screen. They're basically thieves on top of everything else. 48 hours later, the sheriff was there with a box truck emptying their house, took the beds, couches, TVs, the annoying subwoofer system, kitchen set, and even the dressers. You can't do this, Amanda screamed at the officers. This is our stuff. Ma'am, I have a court order right here, the sheriff replied calmly, showing her the paperwork. CPS came shortly after and removed the child from the house. I didn't enjoy seeing him taken away, but they never fed him and he was always in the same clothing and it was falling apart. We went out of our way to make sure he had full meals when we could. Not gonna let a kid starve. Hey buddy, you hungry? I'd ask whenever we saw him playing alone outside. Yeah, he'd always reply quietly. Come on in, we've got plenty of food, Anne would say, leading him to our kitchen table. Jason went to jail for drug possession. He was out on bail and hid the drugs in a dresser they took. Amanda went to jail for assaulting the sheriff when he tried to remove a TV she claimed was hers personally. Get your hands off me, she had shouted, swinging wildly at the officer. Tiffany actually had a happy ending. As far as I know, after she lost her son, she went through multiple programs to clean herself up and started working to provide for her son. Ran into her at the grocery store in January 2025 and she thanked me for what I did. Hey, I know this is weird, but I wanted to say thank you, she said, stopping me in the produce section. What happened that day was my rock bottom, and I needed that wake-up call. How's your son doing? I asked. He's great. I've had full custody back for 6 months now. He's doing well in school, and we're in a nice apartment across town. I got pro-revenge on the drug dealer and his girlfriend and thankfully helped someone get on the right path. The next one is an entitled people story. I bought the lakefront lot because I wanted quiet weekends and a place to fish. It's not big. About 100 feet of shoreline, some scrubby pines, a small gravel drive, and a flat spot where I park my old pickup. It sits on the elbow of a small cove. Across the cove is a new development that popped up a few years ago. They have tidy lawns and matching mailboxes. I don't. I keep it simple. When I first closed on the land, the county clerk slid the folder across the counter and said, "This one's outside the HOA, enjoy the peace." That was part of the appeal. For the first year, I drove out on Friday nights, set up a cheap folding table, pulled a lawn chair to the water's edge, and just breathed. I took a few photos for my dad. He used to take me to this lake when I was a kid. He got a kick out of me owning a piece of it. The only neighbors I noticed were kayakers, a couple in an aluminum boat, and some kids who fished off the county access a half-mile away. Then the HOA across the cove decided they wanted lake access they could control. I didn't know that at first. What I noticed was a narrow path pressed into the brush near my south line. It wasn't much. A few broken twigs, footprints, and a plastic water bottle tossed in the grass. I cleaned it up and didn't think too hard about it. A week later, I saw a laminated sign zip-tied to a sapling at the edge of my drive. Private access, members only, permit required. It had a logo that matched the signs across the cove. I took it down. I don't have members, and nobody had a right to post anything on my trees. I should have taken that sign straight to the sheriff. Instead, I shrugged, tossed it in the truck bed, and figured some overzealous HOA person would get bored. That was a mistake because 2 weeks after the sign, I pulled in after work and saw a shack. Not a big cabin, but a real structure. 10 by 12, fresh lumber, metal roof, little window with a plexiglass shutter, and a padlocked door facing the water. It sat right on my shoreline, tucked under my trees like it had sprouted there. They even spread gravel from the road all the way down to it, a bright gray trail across my grass and dirt that looked like a cheap driveway for a shed nobody asked me about. Next to it, they'd bolted a narrow floating dock to some pilings. A wooden board stenciled with HOA Lake Committee was screwed into the outside wall. I stood there and stared at it. I thought I had the wrong lot for a second, even though my gate chain and my no trespassing signs were right where I left them. Then I saw the orange survey stake I'd hammered in last summer by the big stump. The shack was well inside my line. Someone had decided they could just take my shoreline and put a clubhouse on it. There were 3 guys still on site sweeping up. One was loading leftover lumber into a trailer. I walked down the gravel. They looked up, gave me that tight smile people give when they think you're a stranger getting in the way. Me. What is this? Worker. Fishing shed. Lake Committee ordered it? You the new member contact? Me. I'm the landowner. This is my lot. Who told you to build here? Worker. HOA board. They gave us a location map and a check. You're not with them? Me. No. And I didn't give permission. Do you have a building permit? Worker. They said it was a small accessory structure. No permit needed. Me. Wrong. This county requires a permit within the shoreline buffer and for docks, and they don't have any easement on my land. Pack up. The guy shrugged and looked over my shoulder. I turned and saw a woman in a bright windbreaker striding down the path with a clipboard. She had the look, confident, annoyed that I was even a factor. HOA. Hello. I'm with the HOA. We can help you understand how this benefits you. Me. No thanks. Move it. HOA. Slow down. The lake is a shared resource. You're adjacent to our community. Our bylaws allow for improvements for members. We tried to contact you. You didn't respond. Me. You never contacted me, and even if you did, I'm not a member. This is my deeded lot. You can't just take it. HOA. Our amended plat shows a community access corridor along this shoreline. You're welcome to join. It's very affordable. Maintenance of the shed is included. Me. Show me the recorded easement. HOA. I don't carry those docs around. Me. Then take your crew and leave. Right now. She gave the workers a look, and they hesitated. I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff. I didn't yell. I didn't even get close to her. I stood by my truck and waited. She muttered to the crew, and they started loading the trailer faster. A deputy showed up in about 20 minutes. He took in the shack, the gravel, and the HOA Lake Committee sign in about 2 seconds and raised his eyebrows. I handed him a PDF of my deed I keep on my phone with the legal description and parcel number. He walked the line with me to my orange stake and the rebar cap the county survey crew had marked when I bought the place. The shack was 8 feet inside my line on one side and almost 20 on the other. He asked the HOA rep for her permit and easement. She gave him talk. He told her to save it for civil court. Deputy. I can't settle a boundary dispute here, but I can tell your crew to leave the property. And if they come back without permission, they can be cited for trespass. HOA. We will be back. This is common access. He doesn't understand the law. Me. I understand enough. Leave. They left. The shack stayed. I stood there with the deputy and stared at it. He sighed and told me to get a lawyer and call the county building department. He also told me to set up cameras if I didn't already have them. I thanked him and drove straight from the lot to the county permit office. The planner at the counter didn't even need me to finish my first sentence. The moment I said, shed on shoreline, he groaned. He recognized the HOA name. They'd been warned before about trying to stretch their authority. He pulled up the spatial data on the screen. The county GIS map showed my parcel clearly. No recorded easements, no HOA overlays. The development across the cove had common space on their side only. There was a public right-of-way to a county ramp far away. That was it. Planner. There's no permit on file. Nothing. And structures within the 50-foot buffer require a shoreline permit. Docks need DNR approval. Whoever did this did it wrong. Me. Great. What can I do? Planner. File a complaint. We'll send code enforcement. Also, call DNR and get a survey done if you don't have current pins on the corners. Judges like surveys more than GIS. I filled out the complaints. On my way home, I stopped at a survey company I'd seen on the highway and asked them to put me on the schedule. They gave me a slot for the following Tuesday and told me to expect flags and a stamped plat within a week. I also looked up the DNR office and sent photos of the dock and the shack with a short note explaining there was no permit. That night, I pulled the deed folder out of my safe. I made copies. I printed the last recorded plat for the subdivision across the cove. It clearly stopped at the water on their side, no reach to my side. I found the title insurance policy. It showed no easements out of my lot. I put everything in a binder. In the morning, I called a real estate attorney. I like to think I can handle things, but this had crossed from annoying into serious. He picked up on the second ring, listened to me talk too fast for 5 minutes, and asked for the parcel number. He pulled it up while I waited. Attorney, you're not in their HOA. There are no easements in your chain. They built a structure on your land. That's trespass and encroachment. Cutting trees is timber trespass. The dock may have triggered state violations. We can ask for an injunction to stop use and force removal. We can seek damages and attorney fees under the timber statute. We can also ask for a declaration that you're not subject to their HOA or any access claim. Me. How fast can we stop them from coming back? Attorney. Pretty fast if the judge has time. We'll file for a temporary restraining order today. I'll need your affidavit and the county planner's email if he'll send it. Also photos. Lots of photos. I spent the next 3 hours pulling photos from my phone, printing the planner's responses, and meeting the attorney to sign affidavits. He drafted a short complaint with counts for trespass, timber trespass, nuisance, declaratory judgment, and injunctive relief. He wrote in plain language that they built a shack and dock on my land without permission. He added an exhibit list, deed, plat, photos, GIS printouts, and a cell phone video I'd taken. By the next afternoon, we were in front of a judge on an emergency calendar. The HOA sent a lawyer. The same woman from the windbreaker came and sat behind him. She didn't look quite so smug in the courtroom. My attorney laid out the facts. The judge asked the HOA lawyer where the recorded easement was. He hemmed and hawed and then said they believed there was a community access right that runs with the land. Judge, belief is not a legal instrument. Do you have a recorded easement? Yes or no? HOA lawyer. We have an amended plat. Judge, is it recorded? HOA lawyer. The board approved it last month. Judge, that isn't an answer. He finally had to admit there was no recorded easement over my lot. The judge looked at my photos, looked at the dock, looked at the HOA Lake Committee sign, and looked back at me. Judge, temporary restraining order granted. No further use of the structure or access over plaintiff's parcel. No entry onto plaintiff's parcel pending further order. Hearing on preliminary injunction in 14 days. Defendant is on notice that continued trespass will be sanctioned. I walked out into the hallway and exhaled for what felt like the first time since I saw the shack. My attorney shook my hand and told me to go to the lot with a copy of the TRO and a big lock for my gate chain. On my way, my phone buzzed with an email from code enforcement. The officer had been to the site, posted a bright red stop work notice on the door, and cited the HOA for building without a permit and disturbing the shoreline buffer. He copied the DNR, who replied and asked for contact info for the responsible party. The HOA woman was about to have a very bad week. When I got to the lot, my chain was in the dirt. Someone had cut it. My no trespassing sign was down. There were fresh footprints. The stop work notice was taped to the shack. I took more photos, put the chain back up with a thicker lock, and shoved a steel post into the ground next to my drive with a motion camera mounted on top. I added 2 more hidden cameras near the dock and along the gravel. I zip-tied another no trespassing private property, not HOA, sign to the tree by the path. The survey crew came the next morning. They were cheerful and didn't need me to babysit them. They flagged my corners in bright pink and ran a string line across the south boundary. The shack was deep on my side. The crew chief shook his head and said he'd have the stamped plat to my attorney in a couple of days. He also told me to save every nail and screw that came off my place when we made them tear it all down. Meanwhile, emails were flying. The HOA lawyer sent a message to my attorney insisting again that they had a community right to the shoreline. He attached a PDF of a drawing titled Amended Access Plan. It was a sketch someone made in a CAD program. It wasn't recorded. It had a squiggly line labeled Access Corridor that literally ran across my parcel and ended right where their shack was. They stamped it with their logo and a date. It was meaningless. He also attached a blurry screenshot of what looked like an old aerial photo with people walking near my lot. His claim was that members had been using the path for years, so they had a prescriptive easement. That requires open, continuous, adverse use for a period, which in our state is 20 years. Their development is 4 years old. I've owned my parcel 3. I've posted signs. I've kicked people out. They had none of the elements. My attorney sent a simple response. Produce the recorded easement or withdraw. Prescriptive use fails on the elements. Our survey is attached. See also TRO. He attached the surveyor's prelim. He also sent a letter to their board and their management company telling them to preserve all communication related to the shack, the dock, and any talk of easements. That's a litigation hold. It meant turning off the urge to delete those emails. DNR called me later that day. The officer was short and to the point. They had no record of a dock application for that location. They had received my photos. They had also received photos from code enforcement. They were opening a case for unpermitted work within the shoreline area. Depending on what they found, there could be fines and an order to restore the bank. I slept better that night. I still checked my camera feeds 3 times. At 2 a.m., I got an alert. Headlights pulled up to my gate. 2 people got out. The video was clear. It was the HOA woman and a guy in a hoodie. They looked at the new lock. The guy pulled out bolt cutters. He snipped. They walked in with flashlights. They went straight to the shack, looked at the stop work notice, and tried the door. It was locked because their crew had installed that padlock. They walked to the dock and stood there talking for a minute, then walked back out. I saved the video and sent it to my attorney and the deputy. In the morning, the deputy called and asked if I wanted to press charges for criminal trespass and malicious mischief for cutting the chain. I said yes. He sent a citation to both of them and told me to expect a court date. That was not the kind of leverage the HOA had counted on. The hearing on the preliminary injunction came 2 weeks later. By then, code enforcement had issued 2 more citations for work without a permit and a violation of the 50-foot buffer. DNR issued a notice of violation and ordered no use of the dock. They hinted at a restoration plan. The HOA lawyer showed up with a folder and tried to salvage their position. HOA lawyer. We have substantial community reliance on this access. The path has been used by members for several seasons. The shed is an improvement to public safety. It stores life vests. The dock reduces shoreline erosion by providing a defined entry point. Judge, public safety does not grant you rights over someone else's land. Do you have any lawful right to be on his parcel? HOA lawyer. We believe. Judge, again, belief is not a document. He tried the prescriptive use theory again. My attorney stood and read the requirements out loud. Continuous, open, notorious, adverse, and for 20 years. He then presented my photos of no trespassing signs, the emails where I told people to stay off my land, and my affidavits of regular use. He also pointed out that the HOA had not existed long enough to claim anything. The judge didn't need a law degree for that. He had common sense. Judge. Preliminary injunction granted. Defendant is ordered to remove the structure and the dock from plaintiff's parcel within 30 days. Defendant shall restore disturbed areas of the shoreline to pre-existing conditions in accordance with county and state requirements. Defendant shall not enter plaintiff's parcel for any reason without written consent. Plaintiff's counsel will submit a proposed order. The HOA woman slumped. She started whispering to her lawyer. He put a hand up to quiet her. My attorney leaned over and said we weren't done yet. We still had damages. What followed wasn't short, and it wasn't dramatic like TV. It was a slow grind. My attorney sent discovery requests. Give us your emails, text messages, board minutes, contracts with the contractor, invoices, and any plans. They tried to sneer at the scope. The judge told them to hand things over. The emails were a gift. The HOA woman had written, "He won't even notice. That lot is empty most weekends. If he complains, we'll invite him to join. If he won't, we'll say the access is common." Another board member replied, "We need a permit, right?" She wrote back, "We're within the buffer, but it's minor. If we get a notice, we'll deal with it then." They knew they were rolling the dice. Their contract with the contractor was thin. No check of title, no permit clause, no indemnity. The contractor hired a lawyer and settled separately with me after my attorney sent him a demand for aiding trespass. He paid me a chunk and agreed to testify about who directed him to build and where. He had text messages from the HOA woman with a screenshot of a map with an X that was smack on my lot. The surveyor's final plat came in, stamped and sealed. My attorney attached it to a motion for partial summary judgment. He asked the judge to declare that I own the parcel free of any HOA easement and that the shack and dock were encroachments. He asked for a judgment on liability for trespass and timber trespass with damages to be decided later. He also asked for attorney fees under the timber statute and under the state's trespass fee-shifting law. We had a hearing. The HOA lawyer argued that I was being unreasonable and that I should have allowed a community amenity. He tried to say I suffered no damage because the shack was nice. The judge wasn't impressed. He found for me on ownership and liability. He wrote in the order that the HOA had no lawful authority, easement, or right to enter plaintiff's parcel, and that their actions were willful. That word mattered. Willful timber trespass in our state triggers treble damages for cut trees. They had cut 6 small pines. The arborist I hired valued them at a total of $2,800 for replacement. Trebled, that part became $8,400. The removal was next. They wanted to do it quietly. They asked for 60 days. We said no. The order gave them 30. They hired a different crew. Code enforcement required a permit for deconstruction because of the shoreline buffer. DNR required silt fencing and a lake-friendly plan. Their crew came on day 12 with a barge. I stood on my lot and watched them pull their dock panels piece by piece and float them away. The shack came down on day 15. They cut it apart and carried it up the gravel to their trailer. They had to carry it because I wouldn't let their trucks drive on my grass anymore and the judge backed me up. They carted off every last board, then planted bare spots with native grass seed and put down straw. DNR inspected the bank and wrote them another list. Replant 2 shoreline shrubs, install coir logs to stabilize the tow, and monitor for 1 season. They had to pay for all of that. We went to mediation on damages after that. I brought my receipts and photos. My attorney had a spreadsheet. Items: cost to regrade and remove HOA gravel path, $2,450. Arborist assessment and tree replacement, $2,800 times 3 equal sign, $8,400 trebled by statute. Survey, $1,950. New gate, heavy chain, cameras, $1,120. Loss of use of the lot for a summer. I had real dates and canceled plans. We put a number at $2,500. Attorney fees and costs to date, not cheap. North of $14,000. Miscellaneous, sign replacement, chain locks, time off work. The mediator asked the HOA woman if she understood that if we went to trial, there's a good chance the judge would award the full fee request plus potentially punitive damages for willful trespass. Their insurance adjuster sat there with tight lips. He had his own file. It turned out their general liability carrier had already reserved rights to deny coverage because of knowing violation of rights of another. That meant the board was staring at paying out of their own funds. Members wouldn't like that. They made an offer that was half of what we asked. We said no. They bumped it. We said no. My attorney leaned back and suggested something else. Pay the full amounts for actual damages and attorney fees, pay the trebled timber amount, sign a consent judgment so we don't have to fight about it later, and send a letter to every member stating that my parcel is not part of their HOA, that they have no right to use my shoreline, and that any attempt to do so will result in immediate legal action. Also, their president should resign. It ended with a settlement that was almost exactly that. They paid me $28,400 within 30 days. They agreed in writing that they have no rights over my lot. They sent the member letter. The board pushed the president to resign. She put out a long message about stepping back to focus on family. Right after that, DNR finalized a fine for the unpermitted dock and shoreline work against the HOA. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't nothing. Code enforcement made them pay their citations, too. On the criminal side, the case for cutting my chain and trespassing went ahead. The HOA woman and the guy in the hoodie took a plea deal for a deferred sentence. They paid a fine and had to stay off my land. If they mess up again, it turns into a conviction. I didn't feel like I needed them in jail. I wanted them out of my life and off my grass. When all of that was done, I went back to doing what I wanted to do in the first place. I filed for my own small dock with DNR. I did the paperwork, paid the fee, and waited the required time. I met the inspector at the lot and we staked a spot that didn't mess with the fish beds. I hired a legit dock guy who knew how to work around the buffer. He used a barge and left no ruts. I bought 2 folding chairs and a cheap rod holder and went fishing. I put up a new sign on the post by the drive. Private property, not HOA, no trespassing. It's not pretty. It gets the point across. A few neighbors from across the cove paddle by sometimes and wave. A couple of them quietly told me they were sorry and that they didn't agree with the shack plan. One said the board never really put it to a vote. They just did it. He rolled his eyes and said they learned a hard lesson. I nodded. I'm not interested in their group politics. I simply don't want them on my side of the water. I learned a lot through this. 1, keep your deed and important papers handy. 2, get a survey if things get weird. 3, don't wait on people like that to do the right thing. They will only stop when someone makes them stop. 4, call the people who can help. The county and the state aren't fast, but they do act when there's a clear violation. 5, cameras are worth their cost. I didn't enjoy spending my time in courtrooms and with planners and inspectors. That was not how I saw my spring and summer going. I just wanted to fish and sit quietly by the water, but I'm glad I followed through and didn't let them bully me into joining or giving up land I paid for. The law isn't exciting, but it works when you use it. The best part was the day they cut the last anchor bolt off the dock and floated it away. I stood on the bank with my coffee and watched them go. The water looked like my water again. No signs with their logo, no padlock on a door I didn't want, no gravel path for people to wander down, no one pretending my quiet spot was a common area they could manage. A couple weeks later, I pulled a base the size of my forearm off the edge of the reeds. I took a photo and sent it to my dad. He wrote back, "Looks like you and the lake are getting along again." I wrote back, "We are." Since then, I haven't had a single HOA person step foot on my lot. If anyone wanders too close, the sign stops them. The cameras catch a deer now and then, not people with bolt cutters. The board across the cove shuffled around. They hired a new management company. They're putting money into their own side of the water now, within their own lines. It turns out it's easier to follow the rules than fight them. I still keep the binder with the deed and the survey in the truck. I don't need to carry it around to feel ready anymore, but there is something satisfying about knowing that if anyone ever walks down my drive with a clipboard and a smile and tells me they believe they can take my shoreline, I can hand them paper that says they can't. And if they don't listen, I know exactly who to call. If some other poor soul deals with this kind of thing, here's what helped me. I took photos of everything. I got names. I logged dates and times. I didn't confront anyone alone in the dark. I didn't touch their stuff when they left it on my land. I let a judge tell them to move it. I kept my cool even when I wanted to yell. I made them put things in writing. When I got the result, I didn't gloat. I went fishing. People can argue all they want about community and access and what they think is fair. That's not a license to build on someone else's land. You don't fix a lack of privilege by stealing it. You don't cure a need for lake access by nailing a sign to a tree you don't own. You don't solve a problem by creating 5 more. The law is boring. It's also steady. It says what it says. My deed says where my land starts and ends. Their bylaws stop at their boundary. It really is that simple. So yeah, the title sounds dramatic, and it felt dramatic when I first saw that shack on my shoreline. It felt like finding a stranger in your kitchen making a sandwich and telling you it's for your own good. It took months to unwind, and it wasn't fun. But the ending is exactly how I wanted it. The bad actors lost. The good guy didn't have to scream to win. I showed up with the deed and the law. That was enough. Anyway,